Okay, thank you for joining. Good morning. Oy I'm sorry for the little shake-up over here. Just want to get this straight. Okay, I think we're good. Okay, so here we are. We are now, hold on, let me just make sure that's on. Oops, it wasn't on. Sorry. Yikes. Is it working? Wireless receiver. Okay, now we're good. Sorry, everyone. Ready to go. So we are starting actually now a new episode number 6. This is the Dvar Malchus of Kita Redemption. Number 6 is we were exploring these powerful talks Lubavitcher Rebbe gave after he told us it's in our hands to bring Mashiach, and he helps us clarify what exactly we need to do. And as I mentioned to you, every season connects to the Mashiach, the living Mashiach, experiencing Mashiach, and driving Mashiach, driving the redemption as it relates to that particular season, which has unique and particular and powers that are unleashed, if you can say, at that particular time of the year. So obviously now we're still under the influence of Mount Sinai, of Har Sinai, of receiving the Torah, of Shavuos. And this Farbrengen the Rebbe gave was the Shabbos after Shavuos. Now, what was very unique on that Shabbos that needs to be mentioned is that on that Shabbos, unlike usually, the Rebbe would come down and Farbreng. Farbreng means he would sit with the Hasidim, with all the people, and would talk, and they would sing songs, and that's where he would share his teachings. But on that Shabbos, the Rebbe gave a surprise Farbrengen. There was the regular Farbrengen, which would take place Shabbos day after the services at about 1 o'clock, and that would go for whatever few hours. And then this time, suddenly, without anybody being aware of it, even the Rebbe's own secretaries, this was like a crazy story that we've never witnessed. The Rebbe suddenly walked down, came outside. No one was people weren't there, maybe a couple of stragglers sitting around. And the Rebbe suddenly walks out, comes down the stairs, walks into the shul, and he was carrying a kvart. Means he was carrying a washing, as the Rebbe came in to wash. It was unbelievable. After Mincha, this is before Shkia, before the sunset, and people didn't even have challah there. The Rebbe sat down by his place to Farbreng. He was going to wash for Suda Shlishis, which was also a chiddush, a novelty, because in Chabad, the minhag is not necessary to wash at the third meal, to eat something, but not wash. There's a lot of talk about that. And the Rebbe said they actually scrambled and got challah, and the whole thing was, and suddenly word got out, everybody came running, because no one expected it. It was a special extra Farbrengen. The Rebbe instructed they should sing the special Shalosh song, B'nai Hechola. And then he spoke a talk. And then he instructed they should sing the 10 songs of the Chabad Rebbeim, 10 songs. Even here it says 10 songs. You have to say what the 10 are. Maybe his father's song is included in it, and so forth. And then after the Farbrengen, and after benching and David Ma'ariv and Avdallah, the Rebbe gave out Kashal Bracha. So the whole thing was a unexpected Farbrengen. It wasn't supposed to be. It just happened. He walked out, a surprise Farbrengen. So this talk that we're going to do now, that we're going to share, as it was later printed and edited by the Rebbe, was a combination of the two Farbrengens, and they unified it as one. So obviously, this was something what we call in Hasidic terminology, we call it himmelish. The whole thing was heavenly. It was like completely. It showed that it was a very powerful Eis Ratzon, a time of goodwill from above, and that's why the Rebbe came down extra. Who knows? It's a mystery, but it was unbelievable, and it's a fascinating discourse, a fascinating discussion, talk. So, the Rebbe begins that the shaychus, the connection of this Shabbos with the time of the giving of the Torah is emphasized in many things. It's Shabbos. But since it's the Shabbos after Matan Torah, so it's connected to the giving of the Torah. Number one is the first Shabbos that's after the giving of the Torah, which we always know Shabbos elevates the week. Anything that transpires during the week is elevated by Shabbos. Now that week, that year, 1991, Tavshinunal 5751, Shavuos was Sunday, Monday. So the Shabbos afterwards, Shavuos came out during the week, and the Shabbos afterwards was lifting the Shabbos. And the Shabbos afterwards was the 12th day of Sivan. So that's important for what the Rebbe was saying over here. So being that the entire week is elevated on Shabbos, like we were learning, by the way, if you pay attention to our last Shabbos class, I was saying that Shabbos elevates the week, and I gave the story of like my suitcase. They had the special, so they had the special elevator. You throw it in, and then they elevate it. Shabbos takes all the mitzvahs you've done and all the good things you do and elevates it to a whole different godlier state. So therefore, always, whichever celebration, every Yom Tov, it reaches it's not over until Shabbos. It's almost like, if you would understand, you can record something, but then you want to upload it onto the system, onto the server. Shabbos is when you upload your entire week. Spiritually gets uploaded onto the divine godly server. That's why Shabbos is always still connected. So, for example, now Shavuos was Shabbos and Sunday. Friday and Shabbos. But since Shabbos itself was Shavuos, it's connected to next week's Shabbos as well. This year you can question, do we need the next Shabbos, this coming Shabbos, to elevate the Shavuos, because Shavuos itself wasn't Shabbos? And I think it is explained that even in that case, it's the Shabbos afterwards that completes the elevation even of the Shabbos before. But in any case, in this week, in the year the Rebbe is talking about, of course, the Shabbos after Shavuos was the elevation of the giving of the Torah. And in conclusion, and in addition to that, it's also in the days that are called Tashlumim, which means the days that complete the holiday, which means as follows: that in the time of the temple, the times that are based on Mikdash, everybody had to bring a special sacrifice on the holiday. You had to come, show your face. All males had to come, show their face in front of God, and bring along a special sacrifice. If, for whatever reason, the temple was too busy, you didn't get to offer your sacrifice on the first day, you can do it the next day. Now, on the other pilgrimage holidays, which are Pesach and Sukkot, it's a 7-day holiday. So you have the 7 days to do it. But on Shavuos, it's only a 1-day holiday. Again, we do it 2 days, but in Israel, it's only a 1-day holiday. Originally, it's 1-day holiday. So what happens if you didn't do it on that day? Can you make up? So even on Shavuos, there are 7 days of making up, 6 days addition to Shavuos. Shavuos comes out on the 6th day of Sivan usually. So 6 days later land you on the 12th day of Sivan, which is the last day of the Tashlumim, in which you can still bring a make-up days where you can still bring the sacrifice, which means days that are still connected to Shavuos. Today's days, sadly, we don't even have a Beis HaMikdash right now. What is applicable these days? Spiritually, of course, we can make up all the elements that if we were lacking something, we can still contribute to our Shavuos experience. But in addition to that, we don't say Tachnun during this time. The special supplications that we don't say on holy days, on special days, on special blessed days, we continue. We don't say it now until the 12th day. So the Rebbe is saying that this Shabbos, the Shabbos that he was talking about in that year, is number one. It's the first Shabbos after the giving of the Torah, and therefore it is always the elevator of everything that happened during the week. In addition to that, it's the conclusion of the makeup days. It's on the 12th day, and therefore it is still connected to the giving of the Torah. And especially, he says, in that particular year, is that Shavuos was on a Sunday, and the completion of Shavuos was on Shabbos. So it actually, it's a full 7-day experience. So you have an entire week which is so influenced by Shavuos. The first day and the last day are connected to Shavuos. Now, this is regarding the Shabbos on its own. Now, when we take a look at the Torah portion, we also have to find where in the Torah portion do we have a connection to the giving of the Torah. Where do we see that in the Torah portion? And the Rebbe says it's obvious, right at the beginning of the Torah portion. The beginning of the Torah portion begins with Naso, lifting up the head. Simply, it means counting. But the words the Torah uses is lifting the head. The Rebbe says, how do you have a head lift? What's a head lift? A head lift is the giving of the Torah. But Torah is primarily, the study of Torah is done through a person's head. And being that that a person when he studies Torah is bringing godly wisdom and godly knowledge and godly inspiration and holiness into the head, And that elevates our head. How can we elevate our heads? We can elevate our heads when we study Torah. So since Shavuos, God gives us the Torah, and now we begin studying the Torah with a whole new devotion, dedication, and excitement that we're going to see. That's what the whole content of what the Rebbe is going to talk about. Then the rejuvenation in Torah study. So we understand that that's what gives us a head lift. But the Rebbe says it's very important to remember that having a head lift without lifting the rest of the body is also not good. Because God forbid, that could be, God forbid, a removal of the head. We don't want, God forbid, a spiritual beheading. We want that if the head is lifted, that the entire body should come along with it. What does that mean? That as a result of a person having a renewed appreciation for Torah study, the Torah will not just remain in his or her head, but it will travel down into the heart to inspire the emotions, which will then continue to inspire holy behavior, which means a fresh dedication and devotion to all observance of mitzvahs, that everything we do is with a state of invigoration, excitement, infusion, and that our entire being is elevated as a result of the elevation of the head. So it starts with the head, but it continues all the way down to our toes. And the Rebbe says this is why you can actually say a pirush, an explanation of why I discussed this last night in last night's class, gave a different interpretation, but here the Rebbe says why it says, lift the heads of the Bnei Gershon, of the family of Gershon, which are the Levite, the particular family of the Levium. And the verse says, Gamehim, also them. Simply it means, because in last week's Torah portion, in the end of the Torah portion, it spoke about counting the Kahat family. The Kahat family, that's the first family of the Levites. Now it's saying, do the same to the Gershon. But it's interesting emphasis, also them. Of course, if you're telling them to count them, then it's also them. What does there have to be an also then? And the Rebbe says, no, this is coming to teach you that amongst the Levites themselves, the Kahas people, the three families of the Levim, Kahas, Gershon, and Merari, the Kahas people are representing those Leviim, those Levites, who are dedicated to Torah study. That's their life. Scholars that are studying Torah. Why? Because they're the ones who carry the ark of the covenant, the ark with the luchos, with the Torah, with the tablets and the Sefer Torah, which was also in the ark. So these are people who devote their lives to carrying the Torah, which means to studying Torah. The family members of Gershon are people who are carrying the rest of the Mishkan. They carried the curtains, they carried the roof, which was like these tapestries, these carpets, if you can call them, they used to cover the roof, which in concept means other parts of our Jewish experience, of our observance, elements related more to mitzvah observance and other things. And the point over here it is that don't leave it just as an intellectual elevation, that we allow our minds to become holy, but the rest of our body and the rest of our day and the rest of our observance is lacking, but that the perfection and the elevation of the mind should spill over and elevate the entire person all the way to our legs and feet as well, which is included in the Gershon family and the Kahas family. Including also, not just leaving it with ourselves, as the Rebbe says, but also elevating and purifying all of creation. Because it's through our interaction with the world, which doesn't happen so much through our mind, but happens more through our actions, we actually impact and elevate the materials of the world, which is the idea of carrying the Mishkan, until we make the entire world a Mishkan for Hashem. Okay, so in Parshas Naso, the theme of the Parsha from the very beginning is a head lift, which is relating to the fact that the Torah was given and our heads were elevated. Now, in addition to that, we carry that over to Masechtas Avos, which means one of the other thing that we do special on this Shabbos, the Rebbe says, is that we read Pirkei Avos, Ethics of the Fathers. Now, some places the original custom of reading the Ethics of the Fathers was relegated and specific to the 6 weeks that are between Pesach and Shavuos. That's when the Pirkei Avos, Ethics of Fathers, are read. Each week a chapter. There are 6 chapters in Ethics of the Fathers. So we read, once we concluded it 2 weeks ago on Shabbos before Shavuos. Last week Shabbos we didn't do it because it was the holiday Shavuos. We start round 2 this Shabbos. Now, not everybody has that custom, but many people do have the custom. The Chabad custom is to continue throughout the entire summer. which means we do 6 weeks, and then another 6 weeks, we keep on going. Probably, I think there's like 3 or 4, I think four cycles or maybe 5 cycles of all the weeks until the summer, until Rosh Hashanah time, in which we do the ethics of the fathers. So now we start round 2. So what is the beginning of the 6th chapter of Ethics of the Fathers? It begins with receiving the Torah. The first Mishnah says, Moshe received the Torah and he handed it to Yeshua, gave it over to Joshua. Yeshua handed it over to the elders gave it over to the prophets. And so the Torah, and it's finally it gets down to the men of the great assembly, and that's how the Torah gets, the whole tradition of the dissemination of Torah is discussed in the beginning of Pirkei Avos. So this is perfect, because this is what happens this Shabbos. This Shabbos is a continuation to the giving of the Torah. So we emphasize the giving of the Torah. The Torah is given anew. And we have to feel as if Moshe just received the Torah today. And he's now giving it over to Yeshua, which means he's passing it over to each and every one of us. Now, the Rebbe says, just like in the Parsha, it's not enough to just receive the Torah in our head, which means Torah study needs to be refreshed. But rather it has to travel down to the lower parts of our body, to observance with our hands and feet. And then from us, it has to travel out into the world. Well, the same is also in the Ethics of the Fathers. The first Mishnah speaks about receiving the Torah, but then it continues on to speaking about influencing the world. The second Mishnah in Pirkei Avos says that the world stands on 3 things: Al Torah, Val Avoda, Val Gemilas Chasadim. On Torah study, on prayer or sacrifices, but which today's days is substituted with prayer, and acts of good deeds, which refer to all the other mitzvahs. So we're talking about not just about personal enlightenment and connection, but doing something to strengthen the world, to elevate the world, to pick up the world. So the world stands on 3 things, and also all the way the conclusion of the Ethics of the Fathers, the last Mishnah of this chapter that we study this week. It speaks about the world al shloisha dvarim ha'olam kayam. The world is substantiated on 3 things. In the beginning it says 3 things the world stands on. Here it says substantiated on judgment, on truth, and on peace. So again, it's all trickling down to affect the world, which means we need to feel responsible for the 6 billion people for the 8 billion people on the planet. We need to feel responsible for what happens on the streets of San Francisco. It's not enough that Jerusalem or certain neighborhoods of Jerusalem are holy. It's our responsibility to reach the entire world, all of humanity, and all of the world, and bring peace and fairness, as it says, din, judgment. It doesn't mean harsh judgment, but bring law to the world, and truth and peace. So here we see, of all this understands, how the giving of the Torah, which really we might have felt and feel that it's over, completed, it's done, it's after Shavuos already, and we missed. If we tuned in, fine. If we didn't, we missed it. We realize now we didn't miss it. It continues the entire week until Shabbos, and therefore we have an enormous empowerment during this time. To do what? What do we do during this time? So he says what needs to happen is, by every single person, there needs to be a renewal and an addition in all matters of Torah and mitzvahs. Of course, we need to renew our Torah study. We need to rededicate ourselves. That means everybody, if they're listening over here, stop for a second, maybe hit the pause on the class and stop a second and think, what can I add in my Torah study? Can I add 1 class a week? Can I tune in a little more? Can I add 5 minutes a day and study? Add something. Even though you're learning a lot already, always room to add. Adding in holiness. Everybody, if you take a serious evaluation of self, you'll find that 5 minutes during the day that probably we waste our time with things that are not that important. And if we can substitute those 5 minutes, half an hour, whatever it is that you want to give, to increase your godly experience of Torah study, that is the right thing to do right now, because the energy of that renewal is here, but not only to leave it in the realm of Torah. The Rebbe says we have to see to it that we increase in the other parts of being a Jew. We increase our prayer. Maybe we pray a little bit more mindful, a little slower, with a little bit more concentration. Maybe we allow extra few minutes to prayer. Maybe we add a recital of Psalms, of prayer every day. whatever it is, maybe if we didn't daven mincha, we start davening mincha. However it is, we increase our service of prayer, and finally we increase good deeds. Do another mitzvah. Take upon yourself a mitzvah you haven't been doing till now. Now we can start doing it. This is the energy of the week. This is the energy of the time, and there needs to be a renewal in all these in this particular time. And as we renew our devotion to the Torah, and it will bring a renewal in the entire creation, because the world is very much dependent on Torah, as we just said before, and it will finally bring also peace in the world, as we know that when the Torah was given, it caused the entire world to calm down, as we discussed in last week's class episode, how it brings a tranquility and a peacefulness in all of creation. Okay, this is all chapter number 1. Now we move into chapter number 2. Now, I just want to say footnote number 13 is an important footnote. This that the Rebbe says every year we have to increase and redevote ourselves on a deeper level with adding more and more. And it's because every year at this time God gives the Torah to us again. So the Rebbe points that in Tanya it says that regarding Rosh Hashanah. That in Rosh Hashanah we know God renews his contract with the world. So every year the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, it's not just that God renews his, it's in the letters in the back of Tanya, chapter 14. It's not only that God renews his contract with the world, but every year God engages with the world from a deeper, higher place. Every year there's a new light coming to the world. Hashem is more interested and more invested and deeper connected to the world year for year. So there's a new energy in creation, higher and higher and higher. What a positive outlook. And the same is also, so just like it is regarding the time of the giving of the Torah, just like it is on Rosh Hashanah, it influences all aspects of the year. That everything that happens during the year, for example, Pesach, the Exodus, every year the Exodus takes place on a higher, deeper level. And the same as the giving of the Torah, every year if it's on a higher level. And therefore we need to, at our end, align ourselves with that. And our devotion and commitment also needs to go higher and deeper from year to year. Okay, based on that, we move on to chapter number 2, on the second Perek Beis. To explain this matter a little better, it says on the verse on the 3rd month on the I want to add one more thing. Sorry, this that there is a beautiful thing that I missed. Rebbe says when it says that when we just mentioned that everybody has to renew themselves, a renewed commitment every single year. He says it's alluded to the first words when the Torah starts describing the Sinai experience in Exodus and Parshas Yisro. It says B'chodesh HaShlishi, which simply means in the 3rd month on the calendar, the 3rd month. But the deeper meaning is Chodesh means from the word renewal. Shlishi means 3, which means there needs to be a triple renewal. That's the way the Torah is teaching us, a triple renewal. That means in 3 areas there needs to be a renewal every year. Now that to further that idea, the verse, the Rebbe brings a verse again, that same verse that we just mentioned. Over there it says that on the 3rd month the Jewish people came to Sinai, and the verse emphasizes Bayom Hazeh, on this day they came to Sinai, to Har Sinai, to the mountain. Rashi says, why does it say? Should have said on that day. The Torah is narrating a story that happened a long time ago. It should have said on that day. What does it say on this day? And Rashi says, we need to treat the Torah as if it was given today. The words of Torah need to be new to us like it was given today. So now, one needs to understand that that's not the case. The Torah was given thousands of years ago. Why should we feel towards it as if it was given today? The answer to that is, it is being given today. Because Torah is an ongoing thing. It's a perpetual relationship where God is continuously downloading, channeling, and transmitting the Torah to us. How do we see that? We know that every day we make a blessing on the Torah. And in a blessing, the words are very concise. We say every day in the morning, Baruch Atah Hashem, no sein HaTorah. No sein in the current. No sein means the one who is giving the Torah. Why are we saying that God is giving the Torah? He's not giving now. The answer is he is giving now. Because Torah is not a one-time event. God is, Hashem is continuously teaching, transmitting, sharing the Torah with us. And the depth of this is based on the concept that all of creation is really an ongoing event. Creation is not even the nature of existence is not that the worlds were created and then they just continue to exist because of their original creation, but rather that creation is continuously happening. That's one of the fundamental teachings of the Baal Shem Tov that we are actually studying now. We just learned there's a daily Tanya study. So on Shavuos, we started learning this part of Tanya, where the Alter Rebbe is explaining to us in the name of the Baal Shem Tov that creation was not a one-time event, but God is constantly recreating the world every second, because the words that God spoke, that there should be a heaven, and so too all the other 10 utterances where God said, let there be plants, let there be animals, fish, birds, and the human, those God's words don't end. Those words are continuously speaking the creation into existence. So creation is happening, and those letters that God spoke, the Baal Shem Tov says, all of creation would revert to nothingness instantly. God continuously creates and recreates the world. So the Rebbe says, a beautiful idea. Now, what's the foundation of creation? It's the Zohar says that when God created the world, God looks into the Torah, and through the Torah, he creates the world. Torah, therefore, is called the blueprint of creation. Now, just like the project is an ongoing project, the blueprint is also constantly being redesigned every moment. I mean, it's constantly being refreshed. The blueprint is continuously being. If the creation is happening continuously all the time, it must be that the Torah, that's a preliminary element to creation, is also being, it's not a static thing, it's not a one-time Torah, but the Torah is constantly being given to us in a new way all the time. Now, based on this fact that we understand that both Torah and creation happen all the time, so now the Rebbe does a parallel, and he says like this. Just like when it comes to creation, although we know that every moment there is a new creation, every moment creation is new, and we're supposed to feel the newness and the excitement to be alive should be every moment, yet we understand that we can't compare the excitement that happens throughout the year to the excitement that we feel on Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is the beginning of the year, and we know that's when God creates the world for the year. So hold it, but doesn't he create it every second? The answer is both are true. There is a general renewal, and then from the general renewal, there is the continuous renewal that extends from it. It's almost like God downloads a file, and within the file, God downloads a folder, and within the folders, there's individual files. So the general renewal happens in Rosh Hashanah, where God dedicates himself to the entire year. But then within that, there is the creation of every single day. Every moment of time is being created, but it's all part of that year that was generated at the beginning of the year. And that's why, as much as we focus in to be tuning in to God and to creation all year long, there is a special intensity that happens in Rosh Hashanah. We're very aware of it because that's the general renewal of creation. So just like it is in the world where there is the headquarters of the renewal, the general renewal, and then there is the details which follow. And the general renewal happens at a particular time of the year where the energy of renewal is so much more intense. The same is also regarding the renewal of the Torah. But when we talk about the renewal of the Torah, even though the renewal of the Torah is a constant, yet there is a headquarters, there is a main point when God renews the Torah. And from there, he continues to renew it all the time. What is the main, but here it's different than Rosh Hashanah. On Rosh Hashanah, it's Rosh Hashanah. Here it's a different time of the year. Shavuos is the time, the holiday of Shavuos is the time when God renews the Torah. The world God renews on Rosh Hashanah. And Shavuos is when God renews the Torah for the entire year. So therefore, our sense of renewal and freshness and deeper commitment that needs to match up with God should be primarily experienced much deeper and much stronger all year long on Shavuos. That means every day a person, when you open up any book of Torah, let's say you have your daily study, don't do it lethargically, don't do it tiredly, don't do it half-heartedly with half your mind and half your. Do it with all your energy because something new is happening. But as much as you feel that all year long, the excitement of the newness of the Torah needs to be yearly on Shavuos, on a more even than every single day. Much more than every single day. And to the degree that we feel new and refreshed on Shavuos, to that degree, we will continue to be able to feel renewal every single moment when we study Torah. So the main avoda, if we want to know what's the avoda of Shavuos, what's our service, what are we supposed to be doing on Shavuos, is to meditate and bring ourselves to a place where we have a whole new refresher of energy and pleasure in Torah study. We have to reactivate our pleasure. Because, and it's up to us, because we really do have a pleasure in Torah. We do have a pleasure in God, because we have a soul, and our soul has pleasure in God. Question is, how much are we tuning our consciousness into it? So when we decide with a firm resolve that my primary pleasure this year is not going to be in worldly delights, my primary pleasure is going to be in my connection to God and in my Torah and in my service and doing of mitzvahs, we make that decision and that commitment on Shavuos, and therefore it has a lot of impact, particularly in this time. You try to make that same commitment another time of the year, it doesn't have the same power, because now it's an energy that is affecting the cosmos. There is a whole renewal in Torah that's happening on a very deep way. God is recommitting himself to the Torah, so to speak. And that emphasizes and that helps us and that generates within us a much deeper and connection and an infusion of life and pleasure. And this is our empowerment during this time. Now the Rebbe asks, okay, so now that we have an understanding about the general season of why it needs to be new with a whole new excitement, because it's really happening that it's new. Now the question is, fine. So based on this, we have two renewals when it comes to Torah. The renewal on Shavuos, when God re-gives the Torah, so to speak, and he gives it on a deeper level. And the renewal of every day, because it's not just on Shavuos, but from the renewal of Shavuos comes the individual renewal that happens daily. So these are two levels of renewal that we understand. The question is, what is the novelty of Shabbos after Shavuos? This coming Shabbos. What makes this coming Shabbos in the concept of the renewal? How does this Shabbos stand out? What is special? If it's just the fact that it's still the season, well, that's not so special about this Shabbos. In a sense, last week's Shabbos, which was Shavuos itself, is stronger because the main renewal is on Shavuos, not the Shabbos after Shavuos. And if we're talking about keeping it up all year long, like we say, creation is not static and the giving of the Torah is not static. No, so that's the same every day. What is special about primarily the Shabbos after Shavuos? That's the Rebbe's question. How do we know the Shabbos after Shavuot is so special regarding this renewal? Because as we pointed out before, the Torah tells us lifting the head, and Pirkei Avos, we're learning Moshe Kibel Torah Sinai, and which these things we do the Shabbos after Shavuot, not on Shavuot itself, not on the holiday of Shavuot, the Shabbos after. So it must be that the Shabbos after Shavuot itself has something unique. So what is that? So therefore, he says, that's the question in chapter in chapter 3. Now we go into chapter 4. So here it becomes with such mind-blowing stuff. So in chapter 4, the Rebbe says, okay, till now when we spoke about renewal, we were talking about renewal. In other words, we're learning Torah. We learned Torah last year. We learned Torah maybe for the last 10 years. Maybe we learned Torah for the last 30 years. Whatever long you've been learning Torah. And now, we got to dedicate ourselves with a freshness, a whole new start, a fresh commitment with a more intense fine. But he says in addition to that, there is an element of newness when we're talking about something that is really new, not just a renewal. What do we mean? The Rebbe says what I mean is that there are novel ideas that we study in Torah that we've never knew before. So for most of us, it's not a big deal. There's so much of the Torah we never studied. I think how many people listening to the class over here studied the entire Talmud? And if you studied the entire Talmud, did you read the entire Zohar? Did you read all the Midrash? We all have enough books on the library. There is so much to study and so much to learn. So all that is actually new. But even people who studied kind of the basic infrastructure and kind of know it all, very few. But even those, even they can extrapolate new ideas, concepts in Torah that were never revealed. And guess what? Each and every one of us has because we all have a unique soul that no one else has, Torah, every single one of us has a portion of the Torah that we are meant to reveal. Those new teachings, they're really, really new. And so we're talking about not just learning the old, whatever we know already, relearning them again and studying them over again with a whole fresh take, but actually innovating in Torah. There's innovation of Torah. Now, the question is the innovation of Torah really new? Maybe it's not new. Maybe the innovation of Torah, so the sages tell us, that every innovative idea that anybody will innovate in Torah, any novel concept of Torah that will ever be revealed by any student throughout all of history was already given to Moshe at Sinai. God revealed it all to Moshe. So in a sense, there's nothing new. It's only that it wasn't Moshe received it, but Moshe didn't transmit every single teaching he got from God. And then later students, based on following the methods of Torah study, are able to extrapolate new ideas, but it's not really new because it's really Torah. It's really, which on the one hand is very good news, because we don't want the Torah to be ours. We want it to be divine. So if I'm sending a nice teaching, but how strong is it? It's as strong only as tiny little me, fickle little me, who's here today, gone tomorrow. Like, well, who are we? We're tiny little blips in the, right? But God is eternal, absolute, infinitely wise, and right. So therefore, the value of Torah is that it's God's wisdom. So the good news is that any novel idea that we innovate coming from our soul, and our soul is a piece of God, we should know that these are teachings that God actually said. God intended these teachings. So it's part of his wisdom. So it's very good. But on the other hand, it's a little bit of a bummer because it's not our innovation. So what's our part in it? How can we say it's our innovation if it was set to Moshe already? So it's not a real innovation. So it's lessening the innovation. So either way, if it's our innovation and God didn't say it, so what's its value? If it's God said it and it's not our innovation, then it's not really an innovation. So the explanation to this that the Rebbe gives in different places, and he makes reference to it over here, is that both are true. God said it and it's an innovation. Why? Because God did not specify every single thought that every single person will ever innovate in Torah. God did not specify. God gave Moshe all the principles and all the rules and all the methods, the methodology of how to study Torah. Included in that is the potential for every true Torah thought that someone will study and reveal. If you're following the doctrine, if you're following the correct method based on what the sages have taught us of how to study Torah, and you're following it, and you're trying to study Torah for the right purpose, not to be not for the wrong things. So that kind of study will bring you to bring forth ideas that God is intending, but has not been spoken out to Moshe. God did not tell Moshe every single teaching that every person will do. It didn't happen. But God gave him the guiding principles, which include in it the potential for these revelations. So it's considered as if God said it. But on the other hand, you are the first person to reveal it in the world. And once you revealed it, you revealed it's divine wisdom coming through your mind. It's almost like you're channeling and opening, giving verbiage, giving words to a potential element of Torah that has never been spoken before. And that is an enormous merit for a person, that you contributed to the Torah, to the divine truth in the world. That's called Chidush Torah. Oh, so that's something about, we're not just talking about renewal of old stuff, it's actually innovation. And we should think about that on Shavuos. How can I innovate in Torah? How can I come up with something, and we should try to? But now the Rebbe says, take a listen to this unbelievable, wild idea. He says, well, included in what Hashem gave to Moshe is the new Torah that is going to reveal after Mashiach comes. When Mashiach will come, God is going to reveal Torah. As the verse says, Torah chadasha me'iti tetzei, ki Torah chadasha me'iti tetzei, because new Torah will come forth from me. And the Midrash says, chidush Torah, a new God will open up the Torah on levels we've never learned before. Even certain laws will change after Mashiach comes based on the novel ideas. Now, the Rebbe has a whole discussion in a talk that he gave, which is printed, which on the same Shavuos, but we didn't learn it, and we're not going to get a chance to do it now, but hopefully we'll make it up at another time, where the Rebbe explains how can God innovate in Torah halacha when we know that the courts down here have to decide on Torah. Once God gave the Torah to us, we have jurisdiction on the Torah, and Torah is not in the heaven. That's a discussion onto its own. But we know that when Mashiach will come, there will be such a flood of knowledge of Torah that has never been here in the world before. And it will make all the Torah and everything we've ever learned seem to be like child's teachings. It will look like little, insignificant little crumbs of wisdom in comparison to the revelation of Torah that's going to be when Mashiach comes. Why? What's the depth of it? The depth of it is as follows. The Torah is God's infinite wisdom. God allows human minds to probe his wisdom and teaches us how to pump the potential hidden knowledge and reveal it. And for the last 3,500 years, we've been pumping God's mind and releasing more and more and more of the Torah. And it's all true what we've learned. But there are certain depth of this knowledge, certain deeper inner elements of that knowledge that humans with finite minds can pump for a gazillion years, and we will never pump it out because it's beyond any scope of human understanding. And therefore, notwithstanding the holiness of all of our scholars and all the greatness, we would never reach that. We would never be able to download from that level, open that up and bring that down. God himself, when Mashiach will come, God will say, you know what? You study Torah so much and you've innovated and you've came up with so much amazing insight. Now let me unplug my mind for you. And God will extract from the Torah concepts that were always there. They were always there, but not accessible by any human mind. And God will reveal that through prophecy to Mashiach. Mashiach will understand it in his mind because he will have a super mind, and he will then teach that to humanity. Now, if you're not waiting for Mashiach till now, if nothing about Mashiach is exciting you, I would say that this is really super exciting. Think about that. Imagine what's going to happen when God is going to. Till now, God allowed us. He transmitted a Torah and he allowed us to figure it out. When Mashiach will come, he will begin teaching. God himself will begin teaching. Who can even understand what kind of awesome, exhilarating experience that's going to be? It's going to be mind-altering. It's going to be, it's going to be crazy. It's going to be wild. And that's the Torah Chadash. Well, all that was given already at the giving of the Torah. God will never give, there's no new Torah. It's the same Torah. But we're going to learn it in a new way that we've never learned before. Well, so when we speak about chidush, we speak about novelty, we should be thinking about that novelty already. When it comes Shavuos now, and the Shabbos after Shavuos, we should be thinking about unplugging God's mind, right? That's going to be real novel ideas of Torah. It's going to be now. But here's where the Rebbe takes it to the next level. He says, well, when the blueprint is going to get such an upgrade, remember, the Torah is the blueprint of the world. So when the blueprint is going to get such an upgrade, that it's going to have within it the depth of God's knowledge, imagine what that's going to do to the creation that is created based on that blueprint. What kind of immense world will happen? That's why there's a prophecy that says that there will be as a Shemayim HaChadashim, there will be new heavens, there's a Aretz HaChadasha, and a new earth, Asher Ani Oiseh, that I am creating, that I am making. So in the days of Mashiach, there will be a new heaven and a new earth. What is going to happen to the old heaven? What's going to happen with the old earth? The same heaven and the same earth. God is not going to dismiss this world, but the world is going to have a new appearance, because we're going to see such depth and such quality in everything in the world that it's literally going to be new. It's not going to be the same old world. It's going to be a new world, a world we've never seen before. The way I understand it is as follows. If I can add my own 2 cents to this, the way I understand it. Just like rabbis and scholars were probing the Torah and pumping the Torah to reveal its wisdom, the heavenly wisdom, at the same time, scientists in the world are studying nature. And because they're studying nature, they're extrapolating and bringing out and revealing incredible innovation in the world. We see technology, we see in medicine, we see unbelievable things. Imagine you look at a world 200 years ago, you look at the world today, you can't compare, you don't even recognize it. It's amazing what we've extrapolated. However, this is nothing to the advance in science, because we're going to start seeing nature where God is going to reveal to us what the hidden power that there is within the natural world. Imagine that. God will reveal. God himself will start revealing through Mashiach, through prophet. In other words, matching our efforts from below, which all the scientists and all the scholars and all the people, all the biologists and everybody that has studied the world, as much as it's all a tiny little crumb of the true potential that's within creation. And all of that is going to be revealed and displayed. The godliness within nature, within the world, coming from above. So we got to buckle our seatbelts in terms of talk about, they're worried about AI and all this. Imagine this. Imagine what's going to happen. So that's obviously, since God is going to teach the human mind, I think the machines and all of that are not a threat, either because they're part of all of this, or because our minds are going to experience such an upgrade that perhaps we will always be more advanced than the machines. Whatever it is, this is awesome. This is the innovation. This is the Torah Chadasha. This is the new Torah coming to the world when Mashiach comes. And we will stop over here. And Be'ezrat Hashem, tomorrow, we will continue this awesome discussion. Stay tuned. Hopefully Mashiach will be here already today.